Hello, my lovelies. My name is Imelda Bell, and today we're getting into the topic of disparities within urban gardens. A lot of incidents have happened lately in this specific garden, and honestly, I am appalled, and I really want to highlight that this is still a reality within New York, right? Not every garden is like this, definitely not. There are over 550 gardens in New York City, so I'm not sure how many gardens are specifically like this, but one is enough for me to speak about it, honestly. The things that have happened in this garden would cause me to leave, but because it affects not just me, leaving would be the easiest thing. Gardens are supposed to be places of growth and community. This garden tells a different story, one about inequality, gentrification, and who actually gets access to green spaces. This garden specifically is my case study in that it is an essential point that kind of shows the world in which we live in. Right here, we have public housing, right? And this has been here prior to what I'm about to show you, which is basically the gentrified side, right? You can't even fully see it, but over here is now the gentrified side. Why am I highlighting this? We're gonna get into all of that. This video is really speaking on the urban divide. I'm not sure what I want to call the series yet. I'm not sure if I want to do a series. In this moment, I'm going to call it the urban garden divide because that's what it truly is. It is a microcosm of what happens in the world and what people feel as though is okay happening. So one of my points is founder versus current users. I want to talk about and highlight the fact that it is important to remember the hands that started many of these gardens. Who were they? They were often founded by people of color, black and brown people, who often fought against food deserts, disinvestment and neglect, honestly. No one was invested in these areas, right? There was trash everywhere. They took it upon themselves and they cleaned different areas that were abandoned. If you've watched my episode with Mr. Prince, he talks about how the lot next to his house was a abandoned trash lot, basically. And his father and him and people from the community came together, cleaned it up. This is often the reality of how most gardens in New York were started, right? So the fact that there are so many white people occupying spaces like this and then you don't see any black people is concerning, really. The fact that there's public housing right across the road and the ratio of members within this garden comes specifically from the gentrified areas is concerning. And why is that? In a garden that is supposed to be public, who actually enjoys it? Now it's alarming to me who gets to enjoy these spaces and who is actually welcomed in these spaces. When I say welcomed, there are strategic ways in which someone can feel unwelcomed, right? It doesn't have to be so blatant. Many people are really great at coverted behavior, especially when it comes to spaces like this. It's written in policy. The thing about a changing and shifting society is that the truth is often left out, right? It's often erased. Many people don't know that it was brown people and black people who actually came together and started these gardens. A lot of people think it was the city. A lot of people see white people in these spaces and they don't know that they also have access to these spaces. When you walk into a garden, I suggest you observe what's growing in the space, right? That actually tells you who is a part of the community. A lot of people, especially elders, tend to grow things from their native country. But in this garden, you see that crops reflect white tastes versus cultural foodways. And it highlights who the space is for, who is it being curated for, right? The thing about it though, is that when it comes to community gardens, no one can tell you what to grow in your personal bed. So once you get a plot, you are at free will to grow whatever you desire. On the edges, in the community beds, it often tells you who the garden is serving, right? And that automatically shoves people out because they feel as though they don't belong, right? If I'm not seeing something that I'm privy to or familiar with, sometimes some people don't want to try new things, and that's okay. How can we make this specific garden a place that is inclusive of the people who live in the community, right? Because in this moment, it really just looks white to me. A lot of the edge beds are curated by certain people, and that needs to change as well. I'm at a point in life where I'm no longer just talking, right? I'm action. If I'm not action, I'm not talking about it. that's what it is. If I'm not going to put action behind it, I'm not going to talk about it. In college, I used to debate people all the time. Just go back and forth, exhausted, talking about race and politics and XYZ, right? And at one point, I remember my friend and I talking about something, and we were just like, you know what? The quote is, let those who want to talk, talk, and let those who are ready to do the work, right? So as I highlight all of this, these are things that need to change, right? I'm only stating it because I want people to really observe their own spaces. And if you go into a new community garden, especially since I've made a video on how to get into community gardens, if you go into one and you see these disparities, speak up. You have the right to speak up. As a public garden member, you can cause change effective immediately. If you see something that is absolutely appalling, you have the right to speak up, hence why I'm making this video. When it comes to disparities and exclusion within the garden, another thing I would like to highlight is knowledge assumption. And this is something that happens in spaces like this, right? Where white people assume that everybody should know, for example, what a bee is versus a yellow jack. I dispute that completely. How dare you? A lot of these topics are only obvious if you've had access to that type of learning, right? But so many people have not. We often forget that long-term residents who have been in this area often started spaces like this for survival, not for leisure learning, and fun. They were thinking about their families and how they were going to eat the next day. They weren't thinking about, oh, let me grow a flower just so I can look at how pretty it is, right? So that in itself is very assumptuous, and language like that has been used in this garden constantly, and I'm over it. I think also when it comes to garden spaces like this, right, we often have to think about public access versus membership access, especially when it comes to membership access and the loopholes around it. Like I said, many people cannot make the work hours, right? So does that mean they are excluded from ever becoming a member? I feel as though there needs to be a policy in place where somebody can make up the time in a different way, whether they do admin work, whether when they come to check their bed, they're also taking care of community beds. There are so many other ways in which somebody can contribute to a garden space without it being based on a allotted time, right? Because that is just not the reality in which everybody lives in. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not into euphemisms. I like to just say what I'm trying to say bluntly and get it over with, right? So a lot of white people in this area, they're more concerned about a flower being cut or a tree branch being snapped versus someone's human life, right? So many people have gotten stung in this garden this year, and there has been no action put in place. Personally, for me, I'm requesting that the bylaws be changed and there be education around the bees, because there are so many people in this area that don't even know that bees exist, right? If they're coming close to the garden, I think that people should be aware of this information, because this is not private land. This is public land. I think people often forget that city gardens are public land. It's not private yet. White people, they come into these areas and they act like it's a private piece of their world. It is not. And we are debunking that effective immediately. I want to continue to come back to the point that the garden is truly a microcosm of the world, right? Green spaces, everybody deserves to enjoy them. And I'm here as an advocate to make sure that is in place. So I don't know what this series is going to look like. I feel as though I'm going to be sharing personal stories that happen in this garden. I'm going to be sharing progress that happens in this garden. Yeah, I'm just going to be sharing this journey because it's one that really pisses me off. I have a lot of passion towards it because it's really sickening, really. Like, nature is so neutral. It knows everyone's names, right? Everyone's name. Yet people feel as though they are entitled to block you away from your connection. Absolutely not. Not in my lifetime. So I've said white a lot in this video, right? And some white people may watch this and say, oh, I'm not like that. Well, if you're not like that, I'm not talking about you, darling, right? I'm not talking about you. But let's call a spade and let's use the right terminology. Let's not shy away from what we are experiencing, because if we shy away from it and we don't state the truth, how are we going to change it? How are we going to transmute it? And that's the energy I'm on. I want to see it changed. Right? I don't want this to be my experience. I don't want this to be the experience of others who look like me. I don't want children, there's a school right next door. I don't want children to walk by every day and feel as though, oh, I can't be in this space. That is my concern more than anything. So really pay attention to the information versus the wording. Well, and the wording too, I don't care. The wording is very specific because I want it to be very blunt. I also wanted to speak on awareness and outreach, right? How many people from public housing actually know that this is a space that they can also occupy, right? Is this information privy to the community? I don't think so. Most people aren't walking by and saying, oh, I can be a part of that. You know what's so funny is that as I'm in this garden, I often get to observe the different actions of people, if that makes sense. And yeah, it allows me to know who believes they're entitled versus others who do not, right? I'll be in here and a white man will walk by and he'll start shaking the gate. Like, how do I get in? And I'm like, are you okay? First of all, it's not open hours, so I don't have to open the gate. Second of all, how dare you be so aggressive and not introduce yourself first? If that's how you want to approach me, then I'm going to approach you in a robotic way. Look at the board, email the email on the board. Thank you so much, have a good day, goodbye, right? And that is the type of energy that you are met with in an area that does not respect those who were here prior, right? That is not how it works. There's no real urgency or desire to want to get to know the people of the community. It's very, very selfish. They bring their own people in. And I personally want to see a deep change for 2026. I do want to see an increase of memberships in Black and brown people when it comes to spaces like this in 2026. I do want you guys to be equipped with the information and the knowledge so that you know that you too can also be a garden member, right? I do want you to have the right information so that you can advocate for yourself when you see things that are not supposed to be in the space. I also want to speak about documentation gaps and how they are so common when it comes to spaces like this. The people who often started the community gardens are often erased, right? So who's actually on the paperwork? Because the thing is, most of these gardens were started in the late 60s, early 70s, right? There was no infrastructure, organization in place prior to that. Community members took it upon themselves to start spaces like this and beautify their areas, right? Because they didn't want to live right by trash. If somebody's not investing in my area, I'm going to take it upon myself, right? To make sure I'm living in a space that actually reflects the life that God said I'm deserving of. In this moment, we have one white woman who claims that she started the garden, and she's definitely not the only garden founder, right? And there's another guy who also, he's a Black man who actually lives across the road. It's so funny, actually. Talk about disparity. She lives on the gentrified side, white woman. Black guy lives in public housing. Disparity right there. And they both say that they were part of the founding members. The white woman completely nullifies and disregards the Black guy that says that he was a part, yet he's been here from the beginning. A space like this doesn't have a comprehensive public record of the histories of who actually started, right? And there goes disparity in that as well. You may be on paper as the founder, but you may have not done the groundwork of removing all the trash and getting the space to a place in which you can actually grow food, right? The only thing that records tend to highlight is who signed paperwork with the city. That's the easiest thing for most white people to do. To sign some paperwork, that's the easiest thing. I also want to talk about this notion that founding is actually collective, right? So the founder is actually not just the person who signs the paperwork. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, there's so much more I can talk about, but we're gonna leave this episode here, and let me know if you found this interesting, because I have so much more to share. And yeah, I'm probably gonna share it regardless, but my anger has just turned into passion, because there's no way I'm gonna live in a society where everybody can't enjoy it, right? So let's get into some solutions. So from everything that I've stated, what are the solutions? Well, there are many solutions, but let me talk about some of the ones that I'm focused on in this moment. Specifically, I want to change some of the bylaws. The bylaws are not inclusive. My homework is to look at our bylaws, which I have looked at, but I need to go in detail, look at it, and see what needs to be changed, because so many things need to be changed. There are so many things that are just not right and very white that need addressing. Another thing in which I want to see is proactive outreach. So I do want to go over to the public housing, which is across the road. And I want to actually invite members to come and experience the space, right? Because honestly, if people aren't invited, they're not gonna come. It's only white people that feel as though, oh, I'm entitled to this. But a lot of Black people still operate as though they don't deserve. And I'm here to remind you that you do. You deserve to be in green spaces. In green spaces, of all places, don't piss me off. I definitely want to do more research on cultural relevance and see how we can make this garden more of a cultural foodway versus just for white white learning and play, honestly, because that's what it's looking like at this point, and I'm not loving it. I don't see myself here for long, right? But I do want the community members who are here, probably for the rest of their lives, to know that they have access to pomegranate trees, to persimmons, or whatever they're called, to cherries, to quinces. Like, there's so many fruit trees in here. Why is it that white people are the only ones that get to enjoy it? That should not be the case. For the next season, I also want to see more workshops where people are being educated and taught on the different biodiversity that is present within the garden, right? Because this is information that is not common knowledge. As many white people like to say, oh, it's common knowledge to know what tree this is. It's common knowledge to know that you can't prune a tree in a certain way. Those are a few of the solutions that I will be working on. Let me know if you have more, add them to the comments. I would love to hear your own opinion based on everything that I've shared today. And this will be an ongoing, living conversation because it's still living in this reality, okay? It is a fact that sometimes the white people in this community garden specifically care more about the biodiversity of nature versus the biodiversity of humanity. If we all vanish today, nature will be fine. I don't know what kind of savior you think nature needs. What you need to do is save yourself first. You need to change your ways. You need to look in your heart and see, how can I be a better human within my society, right? How can I bring biodiversity that I care about so much in nature, the bees, the trees, the flowers, right? How can I bring this to the different variations of colors within the reality in which we live in? That's a conversation that many people don't want to have. I think there should be a little bit more community when it comes to what we decide we are growing in the community edge beds, right? Because those spaces could really be cultural foodways, right? Where the people from the community who are actually not members but come to open hours could actually experience something from the garden, and that might spike interest for them to want to get involved, right? But right now, the garden is looking like a white space. That is not what nature was ever intended to be. And people want to talk about rewilding. The hell? If you want to talk about rewilding, please don't piss me off. Especially white people. The thing is, we've always been, hi, how are you? We've always been in tune with nature. You know, it's not something that we have to regain access to. So I want people to really understand their own rights when it comes to community spaces like this. We all deserve to grow our own food in a city like New York. Urban gardening is free for everybody. So I hope this video helped somebody. Let me know if you have any commentary, any thoughts, and I will catch you in my next episode. I'm not gonna lie, this conversation really allowed me to alleviate all the stress within my body, because I've been holding this for about a week and it's been very tense because a lot of people don't feel the same way that I feel because they're not experiencing this, right? A lot of people who frequent the space are not experiencing the same reality as me, so it's hard for them to compute, right? So this is why I'm bringing it to my platform, because my people be understanding. And that's that. Okay, talk soon. Have a beautiful, abundant, successful week, and I will speak to you later. Bye.